Okay, so we're going to learn some modification commands. My goal with today is I want to go through the wall command again, and I want us all together to draw a few walls, just so you get used to that. And then together in class we'll talk about modification commands, and we'll talk about some best drawing techniques, right? So we'll use dimensions with your walls and the modification commands to kind of get where you need to go, okay? Those of you that have had AutoCAD before, some of these will be familiar, some of them will be familiar but function differently, honestly. So, you know, I think it'll be pretty easy for you to pick up on it, right? Okay. So let's talk about walls again, and I want everybody, will you just follow along with me and just practice. You may not get everything exactly like it is on my screen, but I just want you to practice a few of these things, okay? Maybe, may not, maybe not, will not. Okay, but I want to draw some walls, okay? And right now when we draw walls, we're just going to draw some generic walls. We're not going to have any definition to them. We're just going to choose a wall type, draw a wall, and then I'm going to show you, using dimensions, how we create things that are dimensional, right? We briefly went over that, but it's one thing to talk about it and another thing to actually practice it. So let's go to wall, and I'm going to click on wall. The shortcut command for wall is WA, right? So if I use a shortcut command, I'll say wall, WA, which you'll see me doing a lot of, right? I think shortcut commands they're key in getting you very fast at the software, right? So wall or WA, okay, and I've initiated my command. Now I can draw my wall because I'm in a floor plan view, right? There are going to be certain things that you can only draw in certain views. So walls are a little bit more universal. You can draw walls in a 3D view, you can draw them in a plan view, but you cannot draw them in an elevation view, right? Some other things are kind of act that way, and I'll bring them up as we run into them. So let's draw some walls, okay? I clicked on wall. Now something that we haven't done before is we haven't selected a wall type to draw yet, all right? In this properties dialog box, we have this little drop down right here. And if you click on the drop down and scroll down a little bit, you're going to see a bunch of predefined walls. You're going to also see some curtain walls, storefront, right? Stacked wall. We're not going to worry about that just yet. But there are some other wall types in here, okay? So let's just pick generic 5-inch, all right? So I drop down, I pick generic 5-inch. If you guys didn't see generic 5-inch and you're trying to find it, you can't see it, Revit has integrated a search option into this menu. So I can type, if I know the name of the wall type, like GENER, it starts to filter out all of the other ones that don't have that name, right? My biggest pet peeve with Revit is prior to version 2014, you're still doing it. I got so tired of running through menus. AutoCAD has its issues, don't get me wrong, but Revit, you have so many menus to run through and so many options and so many things to kind of have to filter through that you become very disconnected from the drawing process. And that was kind of my pet peeve. But with this search option, they've kind of helped it out a little bit. Generic 5-inch. All right. So we talked about the drawing tools, right? The ones you're likely going to be using the most: line, rectangle, circle maybe. You'll use the pick a lot. You likely won't use very many of these other ones in between, honestly. Okay. I know. Arc is my nemesis. Okay, I feel vindicated. Naima just walked into my office and said, why is Jeff's, because Jeff defined AutoCAD a little, the book. Why are there so many arcs? Why do we need to learn all the arcs? No joke, just 10 minutes ago. I was like, preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. Right?
Yeah,
I know, right?
Like, draw a circle, then erase half a circle.
I will go the long route with that technique. Okay, so let's draw some walls, right? So drawing walls, right, we initiate the wall command. We're not going to worry about top and bottom constraints. We're just going to draw some walls, all right? And when we draw walls in Revit, we are drawing 2D when we're in floor plan view, like it looks like 2D, right? But when we flip into 3D, we'll see that at the same time we're drawing in 2D, we also are creating a 3D element, okay? And again, we'll learn about the definition of those things in the next coming weeks. So let's draw a wall that's 10 feet long. So I click, I move in the direction I want to go, and I type 10. And 10 means 10 feet in Revit. If I just hit enter, that will create a 10-foot long wall. The foot is the default unit in Revit, which is opposite from AutoCAD, right? We have to get used to that. Let's do a 20-foot wall in, we'll call this the southern direction. So we want it to be straight, 20 foot, enter, right? Let's go this direction. Let's do 30 foot. We have to pan over a little, and then we'll go up this direction. North, we'll do 15 foot, or I don't even need to do, sorry. See, old habits, right? 15, enter. And then I'm just gonna move across here, and I'm gonna get very close to the edge of that line, that wall above me, until it turns, we get a little blue marker that says, hey, you know, if you click right now, these two objects will line up. Click. I'm gonna move in the northern direction until those two lines touch, those two walls touch, click, and I'm gonna hit escape. All right. So we've just drawn this, this area here, okay? What I want to do now is I want to, let's look at some of our modification commands. I want to look at some of our modification commands, okay? I'm going to move from the architecture tab over here to modify, all right? And under the modification tab here, I'm going to look at some of these tools we have available. We have align, we have move, we have offset, we have copy, we have mirror with an axis that you pick, and we, oh look, there you go, right? Little graphic, very nice. Mirrors it about, there you go. We have mirror with a drawn axis, which is different from mirror with a picked axis. We have rotate, we have trim / extend to core, which is magical. We have split element, we have split with a gap. We're not going to worry about array or scale for today. And we'll breeze over trim, extend, and trim, extend multiple elements. Okay, and I'm also going to talk about pinning today. So these are all the modification commands that I want to go over today. All right. So I'm going to start with move. Right. Move allows you to move an object, and it allows you to move an object from a stationary point, either a random distance by clicking, or a dimensional distance. Right. So generally, okay. I think a better route of going about using any of these modification commands in Revit is to do a selection set first. Okay, in AutoCAD it didn't matter if you selected first and then executed a command, or executed the command and then selected after the fact. There was really no benefit either way, just personal preference. But in Revit, I think kind of picking that object first is a little bit of a better way of going about performing an operation on it. So I'm going to select the object I want to move. Okay, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on move. I can also type MV. I click on move. All right. There's a few things I want to pay attention to. Number one, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, it says click to enter, move start point. Click to enter, move start point. So I can click, and that essentially sets a base point that I can then type a dimension to move that object over. So I click, I set a base point, I move my mouse in the direction I want that object to be moved, and I type a dimension. So let's say 15 foot, enter. Okay, and that moves that object over 15 feet. All right. I know, right? Like, hallelujah. You went the wrong direction, Shantae. I know, isn't that nice? So now I look at this and it nicely trims all the corners and everything, came with it. And even in 3D, all of the things that moved in plan view moved in 3D view, sectional view, elevation view, right? So it all coordinated when I created that one move, okay? Isn't it nice? Okay, let's move it back. I'm going to click on it, right? I'm going to come up here to move. I could also type MV, click to establish a base point, move in the direction I want to go, and type 15 foot, enter. And it pops back over to 20 feet. Okay, very nice. I know. Let's add a couple of dimensions to this object. Just remember, under annotate, I can go to align dimension, and I'm just going to click, I want to tab to select the wall I want to where I want to grab on the wall. Tab, tab, click. See how it goes to the midpoint? Tab, click. I'm going to keep going. Tab, click. Drag it up, click in nowhere space, click. There's, you know, a couple sets of dimensions. I'm going to pull these dimensions because dimensions in Revit they have a lot of integrity, and they will generally stay with the geometry that you assign them to, even if you move it or stretch it or do something with it. And that makes it really easy to visually see the modification that you're doing, right? So if I move that, you know, western wall back in 10 feet, you know, I can see that that wall will go, that measurement above will go from 20 to 10 feet, right? And so you'll see me a lot of times, you know, I will keep dimensions on objects. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I'll keep dimensions on objects just so that I can track things that I'm moving. Okay. We'll just, yeah, it will for a little while. It's hard to get used to the tab, 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 right? What's that? Up here? Let's delete it. So I clicked on align dimension. I zoomed in here and it hit the midpoint, so I tabbed to get it to where I wanted. Click. And I came over here and I tabbed and I clicked, and I didn't do anything else. I moved over here, tabbed, clicked, and now when I'm done I click in nowhere space. Okay. All right. So move is pretty easy, right? I could also grab more than one object. So when I'm selecting things in Revit, I can do a selection window from the top right down to the bottom left. Anything I touch gets selected, right? I can click from the bottom left to the top right, and anything that is encompassed in that selection set is selected. I can hit escape. I can pick, click. I can hold down control, click, click, and I can add to my selection set. Okay. Now I'm going to move these up again. Let's say we want to move these up 5 feet. So I've selected these objects, right? I click on move. I could also type MV, right? And if you're, sorry, I thought, Dawn, you were lost there for a second. You got it?
Huh?
You got it?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll get through it.
Just stick with it.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have all your dimensions, but that's okay, right? We're just kind of practicing a little bit. So if I want to select these, I would click on this top wall. I would hover over here. I would hold down the control key, click. I'm still holding control, click again, and I've selected those top walls. Okay. I want to move. MV. I establish a base point or a point from where I'm going to start the move. Click. Move in the direction I want to go and type in a dimension. Or you can see over here by my mouse, visually I could say, oh, there's my 5'6" that I wanted. Click, right? Very easy. Let me rock the AutoCADers worlds, right? Revit has a nudge option where I can use my keys, my arrow keys, to move objects. So using my down arrow with those selected,
Can you control the increment?
the further out you are, the larger the increment is. The further zoomed in you are, the smaller it will be. That's the only control you have. Jake's going to have a little pass out session over here, right? So I can move it up, right? And what's nice about it is that these walls, right, anything connected to those objects moving, they move with it. Okay, isn't that nice? This is something I just really wish AutoCAD would do, you know? You're like, I just want to move it. Well, AutoCAD architecture, maybe, right?
No, it's a mechanical task.
Oh, yeah, well.
But it's similar, like it constrains everything you draw, so it's all
Yeah,
one.
it's all one piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever you move, everything else follows the way you told it to follow. So.
It's nice, right? The nudge.
Yeah.
Like I can even, since that horizontal member is part of it, I can nudge that over, right? So you can nudge, right? If I zoom in closer, the increments will become generally, hopefully, let's see, 17'3", 4, 5, 6, 7. But if I zoom far out, 18 foot, see it jumps to be bigger increments. Okay. So if you just want to move it out a little bit, tab or arrow, 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 which we know what the definition of an arrow means now, right? Those of you who were just in class with me. And I can nudge these all over the place, right? Really nice. Okay. So So there's the move command, right? I select the object or objects that I want to move. I click on the move icon, or I click MV. Yep.
So to get it, so mine's at center instead of being at center to be at the edge. How do I do that again?
So what you would do here is when you're creating your dimension, there are a couple things. So if I just pick my dimension and it's going to center line, what I want to do is kind of hover down towards the line I want it to hit and tab.
Oh,
Okay. The other thing I can do, but for me, I'm always too quick. I hit dimension, I come down here, and I'm already like, oh, it's quicker for me to tab than to change the setting. If you notice up here, you can choose the wall face. Okay. So
if you're in a drawing and you want that to change permanently, will it stay that way? You have to do it every time you initiate.
that is a good question. Let's see if we can change it according to the dimension style. Let me look real quick. Let's see. Continuous away from origin diagonal. I don't see a setting that will allow that to change permanently. No. But with that said, align, do you see that now that I changed it once, it should stay there for, I'm just going to say for a while. Okay? It's going to stay there for a while, right? What's that? Did you say?
Like maybe during that session, like that drawing session.
Yes.
It could have the effect.
Maybe during that drawing session, or potentially like if I pick maybe a different type of dimension. Let's do like a, yeah, it's staying. It's staying even with a different dimension type. So probably for that session. Yep.
So how come when I click on this wall, it's like showing me the dimension here and not the dimension of that wall?
Right. So that blue dimension, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, so like I clicked on this one wall, but it's showing me the template here.
Right. So hit escape. That was a temporary dimension down there.
But why isn't it showing me the temporary dimension of the wall?
Oh, it doesn't always. So for that one, it's showing Shantae has picked this wall and she's getting a temporary dimension down here, right? But if you pick this wall, you're going to get those dimensions over there. It's just, I don't know. I don't know the rhyme or reason, but depending on the wall you pick, you're going to get different temporary dimensions.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So does anybody have trouble with move? Move's not too bad, right? You'll get the hang of it, at least. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of a warning with regards to moving things, okay? If I click on an object, this little kind of, it looks like the move command. My cursor, when I hover over that object, turns into a little, it looks like that move command. If I click and hold my mouse button and I move it, that's called a drag, right? So I can drag things back and forth. In a very simple drawing like this, you're not really going to maybe mess everything up, right? But when you get a lot of stuff in this drawing, you may be selecting this wall, but maybe you don't realize you've selected a floor below it, or you've selected something else on accident. And so dragging is you're risky. It's a very risky move because you might be grabbing something else that you didn't mean to, and it will throw everything else off, right? So I'd be very careful. You could drag a structural grid with this and not realize it. You could drag dimensions and not realize it. So just be really careful about dragging objects. I think it's really easy when you first start using Revit. You're like, I'm just going to drag it. It's really, oh, look how magic it is, right? And it is. Don't get me wrong. But just be very careful because you may lose some, you'll have some problems down the road, right? I would say that this is one of those top errors that new interns come into the office, they start working, right? And you see them do that and you're like, oh my gosh, stop doing that because it causes a lot of errors to happen.
You can't constrain like how far it can go, really, like or specify.
Well, you can how far this can go. You can lock it down, but it's just Revit is so it's one piece, so you can grab other things that you don't even see, right? Yeah. Okay, so we have move. We have the nudge option with the arrow keys, right? We have the drag option, which we're going to restrain ourselves from using. Let's talk about copy. Okay.
One question.
Yep.
Like when you go on the top, if you pass like a boundary, it will give you like a warning, but I want to know what's going on.
So if you grab, you mean like if you go like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it tells you, hey, if you do that, that affects something else. And it's reversing itself essentially. So it'll just give you a warning to say that wall, instead of going down, is heading upwards now. Yep. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about copy. Copy will allow you to take an object that you select and make a copy of it, right? So for example, if I wanted to grab this wall and I wanted to copy it and make a copy, you know, inside of this building, I would select the object. And again, I think it's better in Revit, the workflow is to select the object, then perform the operation, right? But you select the object or objects you want to copy. You can select multiple, right? And you can click on copy or CO, copy. And this functions just like AutoCAD copy. And this also really very much functions like move, right? Where I click to establish a base point, I move in the direction I want to go, and I type how far I want that object to move. You know, 10 foot, enter. Okay. You can copy anything in Revit. I hear errors. Somebody is erroring.
It's like music to her ears.
I hear you. So it's just like move, right? And you can copy anything. Yep.
How we decide which side we want to move?
You move your mouse in the direction you want it to move. So if I wanted to grab this wall and, oh, nope, not that. Grab this wall and copy it. If I wanted to copy this, I would click, move in the direction I want to go, and type 15 foot, enter, and it would copy it off to that side because I'd moved my mouse in that direction. Yep. Okay, we're gonna leave that little guy floating out there for now. Let's take this wall and let's copy another one over here, right? So I grab it, I click on copy, okay? Now here's the thing about Revit and AutoCAD, right? By default, when you copy something in AutoCAD, it's a multiple copy. So you copy and it just continues to copy until you stop clicking or hit escape, right? With Revit, when you're copying something, click, click, and it's done. So you get one copy, unless I come up here to copy and I choose the multiple option right here, right? So click on multiple, and at that point I can click, 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 type in dimensions, 15 foot, enter, and we've got a bunch of walls. It is, yep, you found it. Okay, select the object, click on copy, click, and if I want multiple, then I click on multiple. If I don't, I uncheck it. Okay, constrain, click on constrain. It will only allow me to move, it's like ortho basically, back and forth, right? But it doesn't allow you to go up and down. It just allows you to move in an exact straight line back and forth. There's not a setting. No, there's not a setting, but it's somewhat inherent. You'll feel your mouse kind of snap to that easier than in AutoCAD. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to grab a couple of these walls. Click, delete, click, delete, click, delete. I'm going to delete that one as well. Okay. All right. Any questions on move or copy so far? Now here's the thing. Let me just remind you again about Revit, right? And this again is different from AutoCAD. When you're moving or copying things in AutoCAD, you want to get them in the right spot the first time, right? And in Revit, usually when I'm copying or moving something, I try and get it in the general region of where I want it to go, and then I have to move it or align it, which we'll talk about in a second. So you create something and then you revise it, right? Which is very counterintuitive at first, right? But it's, right? It's not perfect. I know.
So you're doing keyboard commands, you don't hit enter afterwards?
No, there's no enter.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, sorry, I may not have said that. When you're entering keyboard commands, it's a two key shortcut, and there's no enter after it. Enter means instead of enter like AutoCAD, it will, when you're creating an object, it flips it back and forth. So if I am grabbing this and I'm copying it. Oh shoot, sorry. Right? Well, it's not going to do it with this. Let me show you a door real quick. Hold on. So if I'm trying to insert oh, I'm ruining the surprise of doors. Hold on. The doors are really great. Don't look now.
Uh,
But if I wanted to use the space bar, see how it will flip it? Oh, boom.
Stop it.
You guys are way more fun.
No drawing extra lines, and then trimming, and then make sure everything's connected.
I know.
Trim is my best friend.
Trim is your best friend in AutoCAD, right? I know.
Letters upside down.
That is so
Draw,
cool.
blow it up, make it.
I mean, yeah, yes, yeah. Mhm. What can I say? It's magical. Okay. So the key, that will flip it, right? And that is wall orientation as well. So if the wall is turned inside instead of out, you can use the space bar to get it to flip. Okay. All right. So we know about copy. We know about move. And again, you know, over the next couple of classes, we'll really focus on drawing methods and how to help, you know, use these tools to best help you do your best drawing with them. Let's talk about align next, okay? So we have move, we have copy, we have align. And there is an align tool in AutoCAD, which is really kind of, it's not difficult to use, but it's a little confusing, right? So it takes a few times you using it to get the idea behind it. But align in AutoCAD or in Revit is really easy, right? Align, A-L-I-G-N, as opposed to a line, right? But align will allow you to take one object, for example, this wall, and align it with another object like this wall, right? So move it over so they're in direct align with one another, okay? Let me add a couple of other things here. I'm just gonna CO, copy, click, 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 click. I'm just gonna put a few things out there, right? We'll make some prison cells over here for you guys. There we go. Okay, and I have some walls here, right? And I want to take this wall and I want it to line up with this wall. And I want to take this wall and line it up with this wall. And then we'll create, I'll do a couple of more walls. WA, wall. WA. Okay. So I want this wall right here to line up with that one. I want them to be in a straight line. So align, AL, or I could come up and click on align, click. I'm going to click the object where I want the second object to align to, right? So I want these two objects to line up right here. I'm also going to choose a spot on this first object that makes sense. So if I want it to align from the outside, I choose here, right? If I want to align it from the midpoint, I choose there, okay? If I can't hit the outside point, I'm going to tab, there we go. Click. By doing that, the object highlights and I see this blue line, right? We've seen that before. It's kind of an alignment line. So I've established my datum as to where I want my objects to line up. Now I'm going to come over here to this object, click, and it aligns it, right? I know, so easy.
Oh, that didn't work at all.
It didn't?
No, I accidentally clicked the center line on it.
Oh, okay. So okay. Well,
It worked exactly as I told it to. I just
there you go.
bad in, bad out.
OMG.
Like eating a cheeseburger.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So next line here. All right. I'm going to align this object with that one. AL, align, click, right? I established that datum. Second point, click, and they align. AL, click, click. AL. And you can't, this is one thing that I don't like about Revit. You know, with AutoCAD, if I want to reuse a command again, I just hit spacebar and I can reuse it, spacebar. But in AutoCAD or in Revit, you have to continue to reinitiate the command. That's why I think the keystrokes are so important, because you know, it's a line. Hey, click, you know, click. Well, I missed it. Click, click, right? Instead of AL, click, click, right? So you're just moving your mouse a little bit more around the screen. Anyway. So I've aligned all of these, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really, you know, you want to get fast at this. You want to be precise and you want to get really fast at this. And these things are going to help you get really fast drafting, right? So not only did I want to align these objects here, but I wanted to take these edges and align them up to that wall, right? We're going to start thinking about our commands a little bit differently, right? So in AutoCAD, you would extend, right? You would EX, enter, enter, and you would extend our lines up. But in this case, we're just going to start aligning objects. So AL, click, and I want them to align here, right? Click, okay? Now this kind of alignment where I have one established point and I want all of these to go to that established point, there is a multiple alignment. So AL, and I have a click a checkbox, multiple alignment. Click, oh, not there, sorry. Not there, AL, multiple alignment, click. I've established my datum, click, click, click. Okay, same thing down here. AL, click, click, click. AL, click. Let's see if we can grab that other, oh, there it is. Do you see how I have this wall butting into that wall? I can grab that little edge. Oh, nope, it wouldn't go. I was thinking I might be able to get it to, nope, doesn't want to. Okay, we'll force it, right? We'll just drag it out over there. Okay. All of these, you can align anything to anything else, right? We're going to start talking about reference planes in a little bit. So if I have kind of a specific angle even, let's, you know, we'll use reference planes a lot, but what if I wanted them all to align to that angle? AL, right? Click, and I could click, and they align. Oops. Well, they are offset. AL, click, click, there we go, right? AL, click, click, there we go. AL. There's the center point, click, center, now it's going to freak out. They're overlapping, right? Undo, undo, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, right? I'm undoing. Okay? All right. Align makes sense? Okay. So far, so good, right? All right. Let's go to an easy one. Let's talk about split, right? This is a lot like the break command in AutoCAD where you can take one object, you can break it into two pieces so that you could then trim it or extend it or do something, you know, with one end and leave the other end alone, right? And this is one of those where it's hard to say, hey, you'll use this at this very moment when you're drafting. So I'll make a point whenever I split an object when we're working in class to tell you, I've split the object, right? This is a good place to split the object to do this operation, whatever. So split will allow you to cut an object at a certain point. So split, click, the keyboard shortcut is SL. I hover over an object, I click, and it cuts that object into two pieces, 1, 2. Okay. I can split with a gap. Click, click, and it splits with a gap. Now, here's one thing, a visual setting, right? Let's talk about some visual settings. Do you notice how my line weight is reading? It's a very thick pen weight, right? These lines are all, we're in floor plan view, the lines are going to be the heaviest pen weight, of course. This is in the thin lines command, TL. It's also this command right here, thin lines. If I click on that, see the thickness of those pen weights go away. Click on it again, and they're back, right? So what's nice about this is that when you're kind of getting to the point where you want to see what your drawings look like, you can put that thin lines on, right? But when you're in the mode of creating geometry, wanting to look at detail items, you can turn thin lines off so that you can better align things, better read things, better see gaps. You can just more clearly see objects.
Wouldn't it be better to draw with thin lines and then?
Well, the problem with thin lines is I feel like it sort of blurs the edge. Does that make sense? So when I'm drawing, let's say I'm drawing a wall, right? And I'm drawing it and I want to get it and I want it to join this other wall. And you're like, oh, there it is. Well, it's touching. Well, not really, right? And if I go to thin lines, do you see there's actually quite a gap right there where it sort of obscures that, right? And this looks okay right now, but if I had a bunch of striations showing drywall and brick and all those things, all of those lines get very heavy and hard to read when you're trying to align to a certain place on a wall. Yeah. But it's, I mean, it's easy enough. TL, thin lines, and it goes away. TL, thin lines, and it comes back. All right, so we have split with a gap. We have pin, okay? For those of you who use AutoCAD, pinning is just like locking a layer. So if I grab an object and I come up here to pin, click, that object is essentially on a locked layer now. So if I try and move it, it won't move. MV, click, click. Hey, no, you can't move a pinned element, right? If I try to delete it or move it or rotate it or copy it or do anything, I won't be allowed to, right? So you pin objects, of course, that you don't want in your drawing, want to move in your drawing. To unpin it, you just click, right? And I just clicked on the thumbtack right there. You can also come up here when the object is selected and choose the unpin. One thing you're also going to really have to get used to in Revit is that a lot of options don't reveal themselves until you have an object selected, right? So if you're trying to move this, you really won't know if it's, we have a little lock here, which we'll talk about later, but you really won't know what's going on with this until you highlight it. You won't know if it's pinned, you won't know how to unpin it. Other options about it will be revealed until you actually select it. So I'm going to grab that and unpin it. There we go. All right, so we have align, we have move, we have copy, we have split element, split with a gap, we have our pins, right? Let's do an offset, right? We all know what offset is from AutoCAD. Offset will allow you to take one object, make a copy of it at a specific distance away from the first object, right? So you can see that little graphic that kind of popped up when I did that. It's a perfect illustration. Okay. Yep.
Why would we use offset versus like the thing we used last time where we like pick?
Oh, it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah. So Shantae is saying, well, why would I use offset when I can go to architecture wall and I can add an offset here, right? Like 5 foot, enter, and I can use my pick tool, click, and do that.
So we did that last time.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. That's an offset. It's just an offset within the wall command. So this offset, where I go to modify and I use offset here, is just kind of on its own, right? You can do it with doors or windows. You can do it with levels, right? So it's less specific to a wall. But essentially, right, I can grab the offset, click. It says, hey, how far would you like to offset it? Would you like to add a numeric distance, or would you like to graphically choose it on your screen, right? We're going to stick with numerical for right now. And let's say we want this to be 5 foot, enter. You'll also notice there's a copy option. So do I want to make a copy of it as I am offsetting, or do I want the original to go away? Like, this needs to be out 5 feet, the original needs to go away, we need to keep the offset, right? I'm going to hover over the object to offset. Do you see that line, right? Okay, if I'm over here, it's going to go on this side. If I'm over here, it goes on that side, right? So click. It's a pick, essentially. This will be, when we get to levels, which I think we're going to do next time, this will be really helpful for creating levels, right? So it's not specific to a wall necessarily. Okay. I don't very often find myself using offset, honestly. If it's built into the wall function, I do, but I always get panicked that I have not chosen the right, let me show you, the right location line on my wall. Did it offset from the center line? Did it offset from the finish face? Did it offset from the exterior? You know, so what I end up doing is if I use offset, I end up pulling a dimension and measuring it again, and so I feel like that extra step makes it not worth it. And so I always end up copying things because then I can control how far it copies, right? So while I do appreciate offset, I don't tend to use it very often. Okay, and again, we're going to go through these as we continue to draw, right? So if you don't immediately get all these modification commands, I think they'll become pretty clear to you as we continue on, because I will do quite a bit of drawing in class, right? So you'll see all of these commands. All right, so we have offset, we have mirror, we'll do the mirrors, we have rotate, and then I want to do trim, okay? Mirror will allow you to take an object and mirror it about an axis that you specify. So we'll just hover here for a second, right? It allows you to take something like a door, mirror it over that wall. Oop, I moved. we go. Make an exact copy about an axis that you choose, right? So select the door, you're going to pick the axes, and it mirrors that object about the axes. It creates a mirrored copy of that object about the axes you choose, okay? So for example, if I want to take this wall and mirror it about this axis, it will, when I use the mirror command, okay, it will take this wall, make an exact copy of along this axis, meaning there will be the same distance from here to the new object as there is from here to the old object, right? It creates a mirrored copy. And in mirrored copy, mirrored distance. So I click on the object I want to mirror. I click on mirror with the pick. There's mirror with a pick and mirror with a drawn axes. Click on mirrored axes with the pick. So I can mirror about the center of that wall. I can mirror about either side. Tab, 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 right? I'm going to click on that middle point. Click, right? So you can see it took this wall and it made an exact copy. It mirrored it about this axis, right? You guys don't know how to do doors yet, but I'll do a quick door. And you know, it's probably the best illustration is with the door, right? Where I can say, I grab my door, I click on mirror with a pick, I grab the middle point of that wall, click, and it creates a mirrored image of that door on the other side of the wall, right? That's mirror with a pick. I can also click on this and I can mirror with a drawn axes, right? Here's my drawn axes. So instead of picking an object and mirroring about that object, I can draw an imaginary line that then becomes that mirrored axes, right? So I click on draw the axes, click, you see how I'm drawing a fake line to mirror about, click, and it creates an exact copy about that line I drew. Draw with the mirrored axes, click. Ooh, this one might be funny, click. Ooh, very close, right? What's that? It is a good door, right? It's very minimalist. All right. Does mirror make sense to everybody? So far, so good. All of these commands apply to anything in Revit, right? So mirroring, copying, rotating, moving, any of these commands can be done to anything, right? Whether it's a plumbing fixture like a toilet or a sink or a countertop, or it's walls or doors or windows, you can move, copy, rotate, do any of those commands to any of those items. All right, so I'm going to go back to modify here. We've got mirror taken care of, two more, okay? The first one is going to be rotate, right? And rotate will allow you to take an object and rotate it a specific distance, I guess really the four quadrants of the circle, right? From 0 to 360 degrees. So I'm gonna, let's see where we're at here. Oh, we're all the way over there. Okay, I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna draw just, I'm gonna go to architecture, wall, and I'm just gonna draw some lines again, just a little square building, right? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go to modify, right? All of our modification commands are here in modify. I'm going to click on an object and I'm going to come over here and click on rotate. RO is the shortcut. Before I actually start rotating an object, I want you to notice a few things. Number one, I have this kind of, this, I guess, axes or maybe, what's that? A base, it's a base point, yes. It has this little line attached to it to help you kind of determine a reference, right? The base point is this little blue grip right here, right? So when I rotate this wall, it's going to rotate about that point, that base point, okay? So first thing, we have a base point. We have this little arm or line or whatever, this reference line, okay? And then we have the object itself, all right? So the way that the rotate command works is I'm going to click and I'm going to establish where this sort of reference line goes. So if I want it straight, I would click. It established kind of a base point, a 0 point, and then I can measure what angle off of that I want to achieve, right? So I could type in 45, enter, and my line rotates 45 degrees. Right. I took everything with it, which was good, right? Control Z, undo. I click on my line and I click on rotate, right? And you know, I don't really like where that rotated that wall. I don't like that it rotated it right in the middle. So I'm going to click on it, it's that blue grip, hold my mouse button down, and I'm going to move it somewhere else. And I'm going to let go, right? So I can change how that wall is rotating. I can click my reference plane, move my object the direction I want it to go, and I could type in, you know, 10 degrees, enter, right? What does it say?
It's like can't keep elements joined.
Oh, so you have something that's trying to break apart from another thing. Yeah. What's nice about this rotate, I think, I feel like rotate in AutoCAD, it works and it's great, but it's somewhat confusing with the positive and the negative and which direction you're heading, right? For those of you that use AutoCAD,
I've had some issues with it.
right?
Confuses me more.
Does it? Yeah. Well, just try it a couple more times. It'll make sense. But I feel like intuitively, once you get a sense for this, it's easier because it's more visual, right? You can kind of see what's happening. And
Yeah, it's very similar to the software I use, but
is it?
yeah, but I have that one stuck in my head. So
And that's hard to get over, right? Because you're thinking of it in this way. No, I totally get it. All right, so let's click this again. I'm going to click on rotate, right? Or I could type RO. I can grab this little grip. I'm clicked on it and I'm holding my mouse button down. I'm going to drag this down to here, let go, and now my base point has been established at that bottom corner. Click. Let's say I want to go this direction, right? I don't like I mean, I get the positive, negative nature of AutoCAD because it's meant for architects, engineers, it's meant for everybody, right? So it has to be very systematic. But on the other hand, I feel like it complicates things at times, right? So I like that this is pretty graphic in nature, right? I can type in, if I want to go positive, great. If I want to go negative, great, you know?
it's good that it gives the previews.
Right, exactly. So you can kind of see where it's heading. Yep. Let's do, you know, 37.5, 45, enter. There we go. Okay. Okay, so that's how we're going to rotate objects. So generally speaking, you know, you can rotate walls and doors and windows and all that good stuff. But if you're also, you know, the main thing, here's a desk. We've got a little desk here, right? I grab my desk, RO, right? I click to establish my base point, rotate my desk, and it's also really nice that I can just somewhat snap to a degree, right? 138 degrees, click, and there we go, right? So it's pretty user-friendly. All right, so here's going to be the new favorite command of all the AutoCAD users, and it's the trim command, okay? But it's not the trim command in the sense that in AutoCAD when you trim, TR, enter, enter, you start clicking on objects and it starts cutting them off at a certain point, right? It trims pieces off at a certain place in AutoCAD, right? What trim does in Revit is it essentially is the fillet command, right? So trim allows you to take objects and extend them towards one another and trims them into a perfect corner, right? So here, right, if I wanted to trim some objects, I would TR or I would click on trim, click, I would click, click, oh, look at that, right? Click, 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 ooh, that might not work. TR, click, click, it trimmed it the best it could, right? Click. And it also gives you somewhat of a preview of what's going to be happening, right? Which is really nice. Click, click. Okay. Now the key to trimming in Revit, I'm going to undo these, undo, 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 Control Z, right? The key to trimming, and let me just say this, when you're trimming something, whether it is like this where they don't meet or one object extends past the next, you're going to use trim. There's no trimming, extending type stuff anymore. TR, trim, click, click, right? Click, click. There we go, all right? The key to trimming is just making sure you somewhat pick them in order. And what I mean by that is I want this one to trim up to there. well, this might be a bad example, right? But let me just keep going till I find. It can go the opposite direction, is maybe, which is hard to see right now, but trimming can very easily go the opposite direction. So instead of something trimming together, if you select it incorrectly, it will kind of go off and look really goofy and make a V, okay? And you'll find that out. So let's do, oh, see, there's a good example right there. Let's try and trim TR, click, click, and we'll just do some nice little trims here. Trim, TR, click, click, right? But this is really how you're going to start trimming. Click, click. I'm going to delete, right? Trim, trim, delete, trim, trim, and join, right? I'm doing all these errors everywhere. But you guys get the idea, right? It's just taking these objects, trim, trim. Ooh, does anybody know why that one's not trimming? It's a separate piece, right? So this piece is already trimmed to that piece. That is just an extra piece above it. So that's why that wasn't trimming. Okay. All right, so we're going to start using all of these modification tools in combination with our drawing geometry. And our drawing geometry meaning basically our walls are kind of the main things that you trim and extend, you know, those type of things, to generate space, right? Architectural enclosures, buildings. Well, the design students can't use the term architecture yet, or buildings, right? Okay.
What would you use the trim extend single element?
Oh, well,
Not really.
okay, let's look at this real quick. I don't use it. I don't ever use it.
I was gonna say
I don't.
it's basically like the other trim.
Yeah. We have these trim and extend single elements where, you know, if I had a wall, WA, and I had it going from here to here, and I wanted to take this wall and extend it over there, right? I could come up here and I could find trim or extend a single element, click. And it says down here, select a reference as the trim or the extend boundary. Okay, click, click, and it extends, right? But in my mind, you're gonna use trim as much as you can. But the other thing is, in this case, Revit is really very good about, you can stretch with the grip very easily and make it straight, right? So I just grab that grip and it joins very nicely with the wall. Yeah, so I don't ever use those, in fact, yeah. But they're there, just in case you need them. Okay, let's look at this in 3D, right? Let's remember some of our other ways to view this. I pop up here into 3D. You don't like it?
You got like H.H. Holmes murder castle.
It's a nice, it's, you know, it's
I'm
wonderful.
not a little jealous.
I can hover around it and take a look. I can shade the view, right? Here are my visual styles down here. If I want to look at it in shaded view, which makes it color, I can. Sometimes that's easier to navigate visually if it's shaded, right? I can come down here and I can choose wireframe, make it look all wireframe and see through the walls. Right, I can come back and choose hidden view. Here we go. I can close out of my 3D view, and here is my flat 2D view again, right? And I can use all of those same visual styles here, shaded, right? I get my shaded view, whatever needs to be shaded is. I can go back to hidden view, hidden line, looks pretty good, right? Okay.
Is the hidden view kind of the default?
Yeah, that's what you want to print in, yep.
Oh.
All right, so I've got my elements. We know a lot of the modification commands, right? One other thing I want to show you tonight, and then we'll stop after this last command. I want to talk about reference planes, okay? Reference planes are going to be, by far and away, kind of the main thing that you will use to help you draw geometry, right? So they're considered somewhat of a construction line. So you don't print them. In fact, we've set this so that, let me just do a print. These are set so that hide reference or work planes under the options in the print dialog box. So even if you have, 1,000 reference planes in your drawing, they won't print in your final, prints, okay? So they're mainly used for, there's a lot of uses for them, but one of the easiest things to use them for is to help you draw, right? And to help you align certain things and get correct dimensions on things, okay? I'm gonna come up here to architecture. Reference planes are all the way here at the end. Okay, so under the architecture tab, all the way at the end, reference plane, RP. I never click on this icon. I always type RP, right? So you won't ever see me click on this. It's always RP. Click, click, click. You get a green line and it's dashed. Okay, that reference plane, that's a reference plane. I click on it. I can grab the end and drag it out. I can give it a name to remember it by if I want to. Okay, I can align to it. I can extend to it. I can copy these. I can rotate them. I can delete them if they're not what I wanted, which that was crooked. RP, click, click. Okay, AL, align, click, click. Right. So if I wanted this building to be 60 feet long, I could grab this reference plane, CO, copy, 60 foot, and now my reference planes will allow me to very easily align building objects and know where those building objects are aligning to, right? So I know that this, and visually it tells me that. So I know that this wall is aligned to that reference plane on the exterior of it, right? And I can hover, or not hover, I can orbit or pan over here and AL align, click, click, and I can align those two objects, right? So I use reference planes in combination with dimensions all the time to get my dimensions, my objects, my buildings dimensionally correct, right? It's kind of the ray or the X line of AutoCAD, except that you can leave these in here so visually you can tell what's going on and see that things are where they need to be, right? Yes. Yep, that's exactly it. Yep.
Can you show those in 3D also?
No, they don't show in 3D. Nope. I can, however, I can I've said this before, I can copy them, I can rotate them, I can mirror them, and I can, most importantly, I can add dimensions. So I go to annotate, right? I go to aligned dimension, click, click, and I can allow the dimensions to help me guide this, right? So if this needed to be 55 feet, enter. Okay, great. Now AL align, click, click, and I've aligned that building, right? I just think that AutoCAD it's faster to draft in AutoCAD, right? In Revit you sort of go the roundabout way, but the coordination is so wonderful that you save so much time in that end of it that it kind of makes it worth it to have not as maybe nice drafting in the beginning, right? But that's what you're going to be using reference planes for, okay? And you'll see me using them all the time. As I draft through the semester, you'll see me using them all the time. Okay, any questions so far? Not bad, right? Okay, let's talk about your assignment. There is this Revit file in Canvas. I want you to click on it. And it will download, and you're going to click on the download and you're going to open it. And I created it obviously in 2017, so your 2018 version will say, would you like to upgrade? And you'll say, yes, please. But essentially what I want you to do is there are some instructions here, okay? And the point of this assignment, here's a reference plane, here are some reference planes. The point of this assignment is to make this bottom floor plan look like this top floor plan. And you'll just follow the instructions to achieve that. To get credit for this, you'll save it, you'll close it, and then you'll submit on Canvas the Revit file to me, right? And to grade it, I'll open it up and I'll look at it and grade it, okay? I don't think I did it in this one because it opened up correctly. You guys didn't get the little trick. I don't think. Last time I gave out this assignment, so I don't really know what happened because I thought I had copied it. I had added a little trick in there so that you guys had to think about it a little bit. But essentially, and I'll just remind you of it now, okay? I want you guys to remember that within Revit we have a crop region, right? And if this crop region doesn't show anything, right, and I turn it off, I crop it and I turn it off, you may open up a drawing and you're like, where's all the drawing? Where's the building, right? This can happen when you're working in an office. Somebody has cropped something out because they don't want to see it because they're working on something else, but they say, hey, get in this file and, do these things. You open it up and you're like, where's the file, right? Where is that? I don't see the extent of it. I can't see the other property line. Where's the parking lot you're talking about, right? And it's so easy to do. But I just want you to remember that down here at the bottom, right, we have show crop region, which turns it on so it's visible, right? And then we have the ability to make it larger or smaller to show things, okay? So I think on the last time I presented this assignment, I tricked everybody and like cropped it all out and turned it off. Right? Yeah, that's true. There you go.
Cackle when you posted it?
A little bit. I thought I was acting a little bit like Jeff Plant, actually, right? Anyway. But yeah, you're right. So the crop region will affect when you mirror it. So you have to think about that because it will cut it off and you'll think, well, where did it go, right? It's the crop region, right? But I think the instructions are pretty self-explanatory. It's just a matter of aligning things. And I honestly, I don't really care, and I've said this in AutoCAD, I don't care how you execute something, right? If you want to use move instead of, like if you want to copy something and then move it, or if you just want to move something, or however you want to go about creating geometry, I don't really care, right? As long as it's right and you get what you need to get done on the assignment, okay? So I think there are a few things like, hey, use this command to do that, but if you want to do something else, that's totally fine with me as well, right? All right, any questions? Not yet? Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.